Best-selling author Gary Chapman has helped thousands of couples form long-lasting relationships. For many years as a counselor, he's found that many couples are struggling to make a miserable marriage work. In his book, Loving Your Spouse When You Feel Like Walking Away, Gary offers positive steps that can change the emotional climate in a marriage and offers hope for even the most desperate situations.
Here with me now is Dr. Gary Chapman. It's great to have you with us today.
Thank you, Terry. Good to be with you.
You and your wife have been married 50-plus years, but you say that in the beginning, it wasn't all chocolates and roses.
It was not.
How did you move from where you married each other with the and they lived happily ever after mindset to reality in a positive way?
You know, the short answer is God. I was pretty desperate. We had dated 2 years before we got married.
So it wasn't like you didn't know each other.
Yeah, we knew each other. But you know the in-love experience?
Yes.
The average lifespan is 2 years.
Oops.
We came down off the high.
Bad timing, Gary.
Right after the honeymoon. and our differences emerged, and we didn't know how to solve them because when you're in love, you don't think you'll have any problems. And really, I remember the night when we got into an argument, one of many, pouring down rain outside, and my wife walked out the front door into the rain.
Oof.
And my first thought was, stay here and fight like a man. My second thought was, oh, God, this is bad. When a woman walks out in the rain, it's bad.
Yes, it is, Gary.
You know?
So where did God move into that need?
Well, you know, I was in seminary studying to be a pastor.
Yeah.
And the closer I got to graduation, the more miserable I was. Because I knew I could not get up and preach hope to people and be this miserable. And I said to God, I don't know what else to do. I've done everything I know to do. Yeah. It's not getting any better. As soon as I said that, there came to my mind a visual image of Jesus on his knees washing the feet of his disciples.
Wow. And
I heard God say, that's the problem. You don't have the attitude of Christ.
Wow.
And I remember what Jesus said when he stood up. He said to his disciples, I'm your leader, and in my kingdom, this is the way you lead.
Wow.
And I knew it was not my attitude. My attitude was, you know, look, I know how to have a good marriage. If you'll listen to me, we'll have one. She wouldn't listen to me, and I blamed her. But that day I had a change of heart, and I said, God, forgive me. Yeah. With all of my study in Greek and Hebrew, I've missed the whole point.
We can do that, can't we? In all of our reading of Scripture, we can miss the whole point.
Yeah.
So you share 4 myths that people believe that there's no hope for their relationship. Talk about those myths. You address them.
Well, one of them is that our environment determines our well-being. And in a marriage, that means that my spouse determines my well-being. That if they are an alcoholic, then I'm going to have a miserable life. That if they're depressed, then I'm going to have a miserable life. The fact is, all of us have an environment. Sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's negative. And we are influenced by that, but we're not controlled by that. Yeah. And so getting over that myth that I'm going to be miserable because of my spouse and their behavior is one of the myths. Another myth is that people cannot change. You know, if he's been this way for 20 years, he's going to be this way the next 20 years. The fact is, people do change. In fact, we all change.
Yes.
We either get better or we get worse.
Yes.
And you read the biographies of some of the great Christians of the past year. They had horrible lives in their early years, and there was a radical change. I mean, God's in the business of changing people. Yeah. So we got to give up the myth that people don't change. And I think another myth is that some situations are hopeless, and mine is one of them. And I understand that feeling, because I remember how hopeless I was. But that's a myth. No situation is hopeless for 2 reasons. Number one, we're humans, and we have the capacity to change. And God is God, and he has the capacity to touch lives and change lives.
Amen.
So we have to get rid of the myths before we can start looking in a positive way to our relationship.
Well, talk about some of the realities, because it's not like you leave us just looking at some of the wrong thinking that we have, but you actually talk about some of the things that can be done to bring a marriage to a more positive place.
Well, you know, one of them is acknowledging that I choose my attitude. We don't choose our emotions. Yeah. Emotions grab you. You don't ask for them. but we choose our attitudes, our way of thinking. And if we recognize that I don't have to be controlled by my emotions, I'm choosing my attitude, because attitude then affects my behavior. So if I think in terms of what can I do positive in this relationship, then something comes to my mind that I can do positive, you know. And the fact is, every day, even in good marriages, we influence each other, negatively or positively. I sometimes give the illustration of, if you come home in the afternoon, you go greet your spouse, you talk about your day, you hug each other, you've just influenced them in a positive way. But let's say you walk in the afternoon, you don't go find your spouse, you go get something to drink, you start watching TV, you've influenced them in a negative way. You've communicated, you're not the number one person in my life. So little ways and big ways, we influence each other. But our thinking, our attitude, guides us to our behavior. And if I'm thinking about how can I be a positive influence in this relationship, then I'll find positive behaviors.
Yes.
You know, I did meet a lady who said to me one time, she said, Dr. Chapman, I know it would be good if I could give my husband positive words, but to be honest with you, I can't think of anything good to say about the man.
Oh, ouch.
And I said, well, does he ever take a shower? And she said,
You're bound to get
that. She said, yes. And I said, well, how often? She said, well, every day. I said, if I were you, I'd start there. I said, there's some men who don't take showers.
Yes.
Thank you, honey, for taking a shower.
Yes. I'd like to see the response to that.
I think another reality is that we have to acknowledge we cannot change our spouse. Now, everybody agrees to that, but we forget the other part. I can influence my spouse.
Yes.
I can't change, but I can influence. And we've got to get over the hump there, you know, because we give up if we say, I can't change him. He's that way, she's that way, they'll always be that way. It is true you can't change them, but you can influence them. So you start looking for ways to influence them.
In fact, that's our job, right?
Absolutely, yeah. We're here to have a positive impact on each other.
He's been married 57 years. He knows what he's talking about. Thank you so much. I want you to know we have just skimmed the surface of all the wonderful advice in loving your spouse when you feel like walking away. And there's also another book called Keeping Love Alive as Memories Fade. If you're experiencing a loved one going through Alzheimer's, I think you'll find that book really valuable as well. Both are available wherever books are sold. Thank you, Gary, for being here.
Thank you,
Great to have
Terry.
you with us.